Although dwarven in appearance, their artificial brass bodies act only as containers for their bright inner flame, which bursts forth from their heads, giving the appearance of a fiery mane. Known across the multiverse as Master Crafters, the Azer are coveted by powerful beings who would seek to enslave them, though the Azer resist and try to carve out their own kingdom on the very edges of the inhospitable elemental planes. Ahoy everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Nazir North, and in this video we are looking at the Azer from the Monster Manual for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and we'll be going over how you can integrate Azers into your campaign and what strategies and tactics they might use in a combat encounter. Let's start things off by looking at what the Monster Manual tells us about Azers and their history and society. First off, they are not natives of the material plane. Azers are from the elemental plane of fire, and their preferred home is on the edges of the fire and earth planes, in a place called the Fountains of Creation, also known as the Plane of Magma. This place is essentially just mountains, volcanoes and lava flows for miles in every direction. Here they have established the Azer Kingdom. This implies that they have some kind of social hierarchy, possibly even split into different castes based on role. Maybe there are some who specialise in resource gathering, some in building and engineering, and maybe some who are specialised in fighting. Though their appearance is similar to a dwarf, they aren't dwarves. In fact, they aren't organic beings at all. Each Azer is not born but built by another Azer. Their body is constructed and then their soul, for lack of a better word, is ignited by the fire of the Azer that created them. This implies that some parent-child familial relationships exist, although in a quite different way to what we would experience as humans. They are, in essence, a kind of fire elemental that has been encapsulated by bronze within a humanoid-shaped shell, and when they are crafted, each one is made with distinctive features. These features are chosen by each Azer creator, an expression of their own individual creativity. This means that they aren't all clones or like the Cybermen from Doctor Who. They don't all look alike. Each Azer has an individual distinctive appearance that sets them apart from the other Azers around them. Because they don't breed in the way that an organic creature would, their population is very easy to control. And the Monster Manual tells us that Azers are rare, so they likely intentionally don't allow their numbers to swell, only creating new Azers as they are needed to fulfill a particular role in their society. This also probably means that there is no kind of gender identity among Azers, and that they probably don't have any kind of romantic relationships, as neither of those things are part of their process of reproduction. That's not to say that they don't have companionship with one another and that they don't form friendships. Perhaps they do, but romantic love for the purposes of procreation is likely absent, or at least very different to what other races would know. The Azers are, like dwarves, skilled in mining and crafting, particularly when it comes to metalwork and working with gemstones. They spend their time mining in the sub-volcanic tunnels and caves beneath their home, searching for rare metal ores and other precious gemstones. They will even send out expeditions to other planes of existence to seek out particularly valuable materials that they may want to use. Their entry in the Monster Manual also tells us that they are master craftsmen, and that their craftsmanship knows no equal when it comes to creating elaborate magical items or works of art. So their creations are not just all function, they have a creative, imaginative side as well, and can also choose to focus on form to create beautiful works of art. We can also learn a little bit about the Azer's history from the Monster Manual. It tells us that they were once the allies of the Ifrit, who are essentially the fire genies of D&D. And together with the Ifrit, they built the City of Brass, which is in effect the capital city of the Fire Plane and supposedly the oldest city in all of creation. However, once the city was completed, the Ifrit betrayed the Azers and tried but failed to enslave them. During construction, the Azers had built many secrets into the city, and the Ifrit didn't want those secrets getting out. But the Azers managed to escape to the mountains, and the Ifrit instead enslaved the Salamanders to act as their servants. The Salamanders being another fire elemental race native to the plane of fire. The Azers and the Ifrit, along with their enslaved Salamanders, remain at odds and often end up in skirmishes. although the thing that is likely preventing all-out war is the fact that the Azers still keep those secrets about the city of Brass. The Efreet may fear that an all-out attack on them would make them spill those secrets. And last point from the description section of the monster manual, Azers don't require food, drink or sleep. And I think it's also safe to assume from this, and the fact that they still hold secrets from the construction of the oldest city in the multiverse, they probably don't age either. Already we can see many potential options for how an adventuring party could run into conflict with Azers. They could be doing a quest for the Efreet which pits them against Azers. They could be in possession of a rare material that the Azers are seeking for themselves. Or perhaps the party have been hired by an aspiring artificer who hopes to capture an Azer for their own, either to force them to produce things for them or to watch and learn from them. We know that their artisanal skills are sought after across the multiverse, meaning many powerful individuals may want to capture an Azer for their own use. Let me know in the comments if you've got any other suggestions about how the party could come into conflict with Azers. There are a lot of possibilities here. Given their nature, we could also speculate about where they may end up on the material plane. While they're almost certainly going to feel more comfortable in hot places like deserts or volcanic regions, they do generate their own internal heat. So there's nothing stopping them from exploring cold and damp caves or snowy mountains, searching for the ores and gems that they're after. While I imagine they probably wouldn't like water, they aren't damaged by it like basic fire elementals are. So you could reasonably find them near the sea or other bodies of water as long as they had a reason to go there. Okay, next let's take a look at their stat block. They are an elemental, as we already knew. They are medium size and their given alignment is lawful neutral. But as the Azers are intelligent, sentient creatures, I think we should take that alignment with a pinch of salt. Although most of them may trend towards a lawful neutral alignment, each individual is likely to have their own personality, traits, motivations and desires, just as you'd expect from any other humanoid type race. So I'd take that alignment more as a guideline than a hard rule. They have a good AC of 17, which accounts for a shield that they're holding, and 39 hit points on average. They've got a standard 30 feet movement speed, so nothing special there. Pretty good ability scores across the board though, including a high strength and high constitution, as well as proficiency in constitution saving throws. Take note of the mental ability scores here as well, particularly the above average intelligence and wisdom. This just furthers the point that they are basically people and could be driven and individually motivated by many of the same things as other humanoids on the material plane. The Azer has immunity to fire, no surprises there, and immunity to poison damage as well as the poisoned condition. Unfortunately, that does make our con saving throw proficiency a little bit redundant, as the base Azers aren't spellcasters. They aren't going to need that con save to concentrate on spells. Also, many of the effects in the game that rely on a constitution saving throw are poison related, and they already have poison immunity. I'm not saying that proficiency in con saves is bad here, it just doesn't help out the Azer as much as you'd think just by looking at the stat block. The Azer has a 11 passive perception and then the language of Ignan, which is the language of the fire plane. Now we come to the Azer's signature abilities that all draw on that concept of it being a creature made from an internal flame. Creatures that get close to and touch the Azer will take fire damage, its weapon attacks deal additional fire damage, and it sheds light in a radius around it, as you'd probably expect for a creature whose literal hair and beard are made of fire. The Azer doesn't have dark vision or any special senses, but I guess you don't need that if you bring a torch with you everywhere you go, because you are the torch. It has just a single action, which is to attack with a warhammer that benefits from that extra fire damage on a hit. And what this feature tells us, along with the other heat-based features, is that the Azer's body is just incredibly hot. So hot that touching it, or being even up to 5 feet away and making a weapon attack, can still burn you. So hot that that heat conducts through the weapon they are holding as well. They are going to char and burn any wooden flooring they walk across. They are going to melt snow. They're likely going to kill any plant life they walk past. Imagine a small troop of Azers marching across the countryside on the material plane, and the sheer devastation they would leave behind just from that residual heat from their bodies. They would be at least very easy to track though, that's for sure. Alright, stat block done. Let's talk about battle tactics and the potential allies of the Azers. First off, Azers are smart, actually smarter and wiser than the average human in Dungeons and Dragons. So they could employ any battle tactics we could imagine a well-organised military force to employ. Things like taking advantage of favourable environments, including high ground or difficult terrain, setting traps and laying ambushes, manoeuvring and flanking mid-battle, changing the environment to suit their needs, such as digging ditches or building defensive fortifications, and when appropriate, ordering tactical retreats. In a group, Azers are going to be an intelligent and well-coordinated fighting force. If the Azers are fighting their usual foes, say salamanders, both groups there will be immune to fire, so Azers aren't likely to use fire much in their battle plans. When fighting against salamanders, Azers may even opt for ranged weapons like crossbows instead of their melee weapons. Even though ranged weapons don't offer that extra fire damage on a hit, it wouldn't matter against the salamanders because they would be immune to that fire damage anyway. However, if the Azers are on an expedition to another plane or are facing foes from another plane, like say an adventuring party, they are going to use fire, lava and other flammable materials to their advantage. Azers could fight effectively even in knee-deep lava, or in a burning field or forest fire, something the players may struggle with. If attacked at their home, Azers may also have traps set up which can unleash streams of lava or flammable liquids towards invaders. When it comes to the actual fighting itself, Azers are going to excel in melee combat, and they will do whatever they can to close their distance on their foes, particularly those who are trying to attack them from range. If there are any targets they perceive as high threat, Azers will likely try and surround them and take them down as quickly as they can. As they are smart creatures, when facing enemy spellcasters who are more likely to do saving throw based effects rather than attack in their AC, Azers may opt to drop their shields and move in to wield their warhammers with both hands, sacrificing some AC for a little extra damage. In terms of weaknesses, the Azers' weaknesses stem mainly from their core reliance on melee and their basic 30 feet movement speed. Plus, their heated weapons trait only works on melee weapons, so even when they do decide to use a ranged weapon, it's not going to do as much damage. Weaknesses and how we could overcome them brings us on nicely to the next section, allies. Thematically, who would it make sense for the Azers to be fighting alongside, and whose traits and abilities will complement theirs on the battlefield? We already know that the Azers will benefit particularly from allies with either good mobility or good ranged attacks to make up for what they are lacking. Let's start with an obvious ally, fire elementals. It would make sense that Azers, as natives of the fire plane, could harness fire elementals in their service. Fire elementals have a good hit point pool, several damage resistances, and most importantly for us, 50 feet of movement speed, making up for the fairly average speed of the Azer, able to quickly close the distance on their foes. In addition to your basic fire elemental, you could also include here things like the magmins and the fire mephits, both of whom explode in a fiery burst when they die, which makes them useful disposable minions to just rush into battle. Given that the Azer kingdom is on the edge of the fire and earth elemental planes, they may also end up working with earth elementals. Earth elementals could help them dig and search for the precious metals and gemstones thereafter, but they could also fulfill that tank-like role in combat. As the Azers are master crafters, I can also imagine them building their own allies, particularly things like animated armor, a helmed horror, or flying swords. Flying swords in particular would also help to alleviate their lack of mobility, as the name suggests, they can fly. And in terms of crafting their own allies, golems, particularly the stone or iron golems. Golems themselves are said to be powered by elemental spirits, so they really make a lot of thematic sense for the Azers to craft. They could, for example, masterfully craft the body of a stone golem, and then bind the spirit of a fire elemental to that body to bring it to life, so to speak. but it is the Iron Golem in particular that is such a great fit for Azers. The Iron Golem heals whenever it receives fire damage, and it has a poison breath weapon, which the Azers wouldn't need to worry about when it comes to friendly fire as they are immune to poison. An Iron Golem Guardian could be what takes your CR2 Azers right up into higher tier play. As the Iron Golem is CR16, it's a really tough opponent and a perfect fit to fight alongside the Azers. Just imagine an Iron Golem fighting in a burning building or in knee-deep lava where it is being constantly healed by that fire damage. That could be a really challenging encounter. Now, even though there is an Azer kingdom that has resisted slavery, we could assume that some Azers have been captured or otherwise manipulated into the service of other creatures. So you may have some that have been enslaved by the Ifrit working alongside the enslaved salamanders. They could have also been captured and enslaved by creatures like fire giants, where they're being forced to construct their massive weaponry. Azers are also a valid target for the Conjure Minor Elemental spell, meaning many mages of the material plane or elsewhere may be using Azers as servants or as allies in combat. And just to top this section off, one last honourable mention is the Brass Dragon. Brass Dragons have immunity to fire, and they are particularly fond of hot places like deserts or volcanoes, so there is some synergy there. The Azers may not necessarily serve a Brass Dragon, but they may share a common goal and work together. So the Azers are quite fortunate in their long list of potential allies, so it's not going to be difficult to build up a diverse combat encounter around them. However, to add a few more options in, we could consider the following. If the Azers are defending against an attack, give them a ballista or two to set up in a defensive position, to give them some more ranged options that actually deal decent damage. Azers are smart and good crafters. Building something like a ballista to them is probably a very trivial exercise. I'd also consider varying their weapons and equipment that they bring to battle. Perhaps include some Azers who forgo the shield and instead bring a great weapon, sacrificing some AC for a bit of extra damage. You could also give each Azer 2 bottles of Alchemist's Fire that they could throw if they can't quite get into melee range with their enemies. We also know that Azers will go on expeditions to other planes to search for rare materials. So we could infer from this that some of them are capable of spellcasting and interdimensional travel, so if you really want to spice up an Azer encounter, give a couple of them some spells as well. I'd probably focus on things like Burning Hands and Fireball, spells that thematically fit the Azers. Okay, that's about it for Azers for this one. If you've enjoyed, please make sure to hit that like button. And I hope this video has inspired you to create some Azer encounters and storylines for your campaign. If this has given you any ideas, or if you've used Azers before, let me know in the comments. If you want to see some more monster breakdowns like this one, you can check out those cards on the end screen. And I am going to continue making these, so be sure to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with future videos in this series. Cheers everyone, I will see you next time.